Hey, what's up, guys? This is CG with Politics Mob, and today I'm talking about the 5 reasons that Black lives don't matter. Let's go.
Ask what you can do for your country.
And always will be the United States of America.
We're going to build the wall.
Tear down this wall.
All right, so the purpose of today's video is to break down and explore the 5 core arguments against the Black Lives Matter movement. All right, argument number 1. Black lives don't matter because of black on black violence. This is by far the most popular argument that I've seen. If you've been paying attention at all the last 6 or 7 years since BLM started, you've undoubtedly come across this online or seen things on TV like this.
In any American ghetto where the black on black crime is a bigger threat and a bigger problem in the black community than the police use of force.
Or this.
Because you cannot say Black Lives Matter and then kill yourselves.
Or something like this.
And I look at it like you got black people killing each other every day, actually outnumbering the deaths of the police versus, urban people.
For the record, the reason why I use clips from 3, 4, and 5 years ago is purely to demonstrate that this argument is in fact not new. But let's break it down. Essentially, what this argument boils down to is that black people can't get mad when they're killed by police because black people kill each other more than anybody else. And that's true. Black people are killed more by black people than they are by police. But so what? Because guess what else is true? White people kill white people more than police kill white people. Hispanic, Latino, Latinx communities kill each other more than police kill them. Asian people kill Asian people more than police kill Asian people. If you want to go even deeper, you are more likely to be killed by a member of your own race than you are by the police or by a member of a different race. So what? That's true for every single person in America. No matter what race or ethnicity you belong to, you're more likely to be killed by a member of that same race or ethnicity than you are by the police. That's not what we're talking about, though. We're talking about whether or not systemic racism and police violence and brutality negatively impacts the black community more than anybody else. I've got some stats at the end of the video that will break all that down, but the point of this specific section of the video is just to point out that bringing up black on black violence in the context of racially motivated violence doesn't make any sense. By definition, black on black violence isn't racist. It's definitely a problem. And people that don't really give a shit about Chicago or Detroit or Baltimore or New Orleans love to point to those cities and say, look at that. Look how cruel they are to each other. They kill each other all the time. But when someone else kills them, they throw a fit. Well, yeah, that's the point, right? Think about what I just said. All races kill each other more than anybody else kills them. But you don't hear about Asian on Asian violence or white on white violence, Hispanic on Hispanic violence. They're never framed that way. Only black people are framed that way. And yes, the black murder rate is higher than any other demographic, but they're still killing each other. It's not racially motivated. There are definitely some socioeconomic issues related, but race isn't one of them. So if we're talking about race in this country when it comes to murder, specifically murder by the state, let's focus on that. Now, if you just happen to disagree that race is a factor in the United States when it comes to police violence and brutality, you're welcome to that opinion. And I'll get to that later on in the video. But don't bring up black on black violence as a counterpoint to Black Lives Matter. It doesn't make any sense. All right. Argument number 2, the reason why black lives don't matter. Black lives don't matter because black babies don't matter. You've probably seen this argument online and on TV before. It usually goes a little something like this.
I believe some of you believe black lives matter. Well, I'm wondering if black baby lives matter.
Or maybe you've seen this recent video online.
Lives matter or just some black lives? The black lives killed by black men matter, right? Yes? The black babies killed in the abortions clinics matter, right? Thought so.
All right, so my man in the video thinks he really had a mic drop moment, but he didn't. Here's the irony about using the black abortion rate when discussing Black Lives Matter. You're actually talking about another issue that highlights the gap between white America and black America. You're highlighting another issue that is evidence of systemic racism. Why do you think that the black abortion rate is so high? Because black women just love abortions? Because black babies don't matter? No. It's because historically, black women do not have the same level of education and access to resources that their white counterparts enjoy. Less education, less money, less economic development, put whatever stat you want on it, means more abortion. The less educated you are and the less resources you have, the more likely you are to terminate a pregnancy. And before you at me, I'm not saying black women are stupid. Far from it. What I'm saying is that historically, the black community is oppressed. With that oppression comes lack of access. It doesn't mean you can't make it, you can't be a Barack Obama or Ben Carson. Of course you can. It's saying that it's harder for you, which means everything is harder for you, including bringing a pregnancy to term and not having to abort it based on your financial, economic, or sociological experiences. Does that make sense? Saying black babies don't matter has no place in this debate. Of course, black babies matter, but why are we talking about abortion in the context of police violence and brutality? It's completely flawed logic. The premise of that argument is, I can't complain about police violence and brutality that affects the black community and scream at the top of my lungs, Black Lives Matter, because black women have a lot of abortions? That doesn't make any sense. Here's another reason why that doesn't make any sense. This is going to offend some people. Abortion isn't murder. It's not. Now, before you get all mad about that, I'm talking about legally speaking, abortion is not murder. So when you see someone like George Floyd or anyone else whose life is taken by police, it is not up for debate whether or not a human being was killed by another human being. It is 100% up for debate whether or not a black woman who terminates her black pregnancy is committing murder. Legally speaking, she's not. I don't care what your religious or moral beliefs guide you to think. I'm saying that it's not murder until the courts change their mind on that. If they do, we can talk. Furthermore, the Black Babies Matter argument suffers from the same flawed logic as the black on black crime logic, which is, you're telling me I can't say Black Lives Matter because the black abortion rate is so high. You're missing the point. Black Lives Matter is specifically about systemic racism and its impact on the black community. A black mother deciding to terminate her black pregnancy is, one, making a personal decision, and two, certainly not doing anything that could reasonably be construed as racist. So why even bring it up? All right. Reason number 3 that black lives don't matter. Black lives don't matter because black conservatives say so. Now, if you've been online recently, you've probably come across something like this.
I was discussing the tendency in Black America for us to uplift criminals, to pretend that they are heroes and martyrs when they die at the hand of white individuals.
All right, we really, really need to pick this one apart. Basically, what she's saying there is that George Floyd and others deserved to die because they were criminals. Or it's not tragic that they died because they're criminals. What does being a criminal have to do with being killed by police when you're unarmed? If you are killed by police in the act of committing a violent crime, I don't think anybody's going to say anything about it. George Floyd was unarmed. Multiple black men in this country were unarmed, and women, and were still killed by police. You cannot reasonably say that everyone killed by police deserved it. It doesn't make any sense. And by using someone's criminal past or history, or even their criminal present, to justify their murder is really unfortunate. Honestly, I feel bad for anybody that thinks this way. What you're saying is, because George Floyd had a rap sheet, because George Floyd may have been high at the time, he deserved to die? Think about that. You're saying that there's no evidence of racism because George Floyd wasn't a saint? What kind of standard is that? Here's what you need to be asking yourself every single time one of these issues comes up. Did insert person here deserve to be killed by police? Because let's be 100% real. Some people are killed by police in a completely 100% justified manner. I'm not talking about that. BLM's not talking about that. So ask yourself that. Did this person deserve to be killed by police? If the answer is no, as in no, that person did not deserve to be killed by police, then you have two follow-up questions to ask yourself. The first follow-up question is, does systemic racism in America explain why this person may have been killed when they shouldn't have been? Question number two, is it possible that some people are killed by police more than they should be, even though all people are killed by police? Black conservatives would say no. Racism is not a factor when it comes to police shootings and killings and police violence and brutality. They would say no. And the second part of the black conservative argument usually goes a little something like this.
But look here, this whole Black Lives Matter, why I can't get down with this organization? Main reason, your whole narrative that police officers are hunting down black men on a daily.
Yeah, like it's a purge.
Right? Is that Black Lives Matter, that was built on a lie.
The black conservative argument is essentially this. There is no racism in the system. If you didn't make it, it's because you didn't want to. If you didn't make it, it's because you didn't try hard enough. If you didn't make it, it's because you lacked drive and work ethic, etc. That's the black conservative argument in a nutshell. So when these issues of police violence and brutality pop up, they speak from that point of view. If you were killed by police, it's because you must have been doing something wrong. Racism doesn't affect us like it did 50 years ago. So what did you do to deserve it? They're welcome to that opinion. It's one that I disagree with it, but they're welcome to have it. But here's the issue with the black conservative voice when it comes to the BLM movement. There's nothing special about it. Black conservatives like Candace Owens and the Hodge twins are just reciting boilerplate clone stamp conservative arguments. They are not adding anything to the debate. Candace Owens says the exact same shit that Tucker Carlson says. Why does Candace Owens' voice carry so much more weight? I'll tell you. Because she's black. The implication is her voice on this matter is going to be more impactful to people that hear it, specifically black people that hear it, because she's black. But she's not saying anything different. She's not speaking from her own experience. She's just saying the same shit that all conservatives say. Racism is not as prevalent in America as it used to be. So if you're complaining about it, there's something wrong with you. That's the argument. It doesn't matter if you're white or black or whatever and say it. It's the same argument. But here's the kicker. I get sent videos by Candace Owens, the Hodge twins, and some of these other people all the time. Like a look. There's one of you guys. She feels the way I feel. Look at her. Here's a problem. I only ever get sent videos of Candace Owens and all the rest of them by white folks. I'll repeat that. White people are the only people that send me clips of Candace Owens with the assumption that now I'll listen to this because she's black. Think about what you just did there. I'm going to change my mind because a black woman said it? I'm not. You shouldn't either. Stop using black conservatives as a counterpoint when they're not actually doing anything that you're not doing. Pointing to someone that agrees with you is not a counter argument. It's just someone that agrees with you that happens to be black. So what? Let's talk about the merits of the argument. Don't get into a debate with me or other people that support BLM and say, well, you're wrong because a black woman says so. Just say that out loud. Black lives don't matter because this black woman said so. It's stupid. At any given time over the last 40 years, between 8 and 15% of the black electorate have voted Republican. So what? I'm not even knocking them for it. They can do whatever they want to do. So pick a point in the last 40 years. You'll see between 8 and 15% of black people that vote Republican. So why then should I care when someone who is Republican, someone who is conservative, has a conservative point of view? Honestly, it would be weird if they didn't. White conservatives, please stop using black conservatives to make your point. Just make your point yourself. It's not going to sway anyone that someone who's conservative has a conservative point of view just because they're black. If it did sway you, that would be a little weird, right? All right. The fourth reason why black lives don't matter. Black lives don't matter because violent protesters, rioters, and looters have ruined it for everyone. Once things turn violent, I'm plugging my ears. Once things turn violent, your message is dead. Because those few bad apples ruin it for everybody. Black lives don't matter because part of the movement commits acts of violence and destruction. I want to be really, really clear on this. People should not loot. They shouldn't burn down buildings. They shouldn't destroy property. I don't condone it at all. But here's the thing. People are so quick to say things like this.
The press would like these protests to go down in history as mostly peaceful. They're not.
And then they turn right around and say things like this.
While the wheels of justice turn in this case, it's important that we also push back against the notion that all police officers can never be trusted, or that America, just at its core, is some cauldron boiling over with pure racism and inequality.
Did you catch that? There is a massive lack of consistency in the Black Lives Matter is a false movement because the minority of people involved in it commit acts of violence and destruction. Because those are the same people that say, not all cops are bad. Don't hate the cops. Don't hate the police, man. They're not all bad. And they're right. I'm not making fun of you guys, right? That's 100% accurate. Not all cops are bad. I would go as far as saying most cops are good. But be consistent. How can you sit there and say the small percentage of BLM, some of these people aren't even BLM, first of all, but let's say they are, for the sake of argument. Let's say everyone that was rioting and looting was BLM, every single person. Let's just, for argument's sake. How can you sit there and say the small amount of people that riot and loot ruin BLM? Now we don't give a shit about anything BLM has to say because those small people, that small number of people, ruined it for everyone. But those small number of cops that are clearly racist, that clearly don't belong on a police force with a badge and a gun, those people shouldn't ruin it for all cops. Come on, man. That doesn't make sense. Just because some cops are bad, you shouldn't hate all cops. True. And you shouldn't hate BLM. You shouldn't turn your ears and your eyes away from BLM just because someone affiliated with BLM did something you didn't like. The vast majority of people out there protesting for racial justice and equality are good people. If you think all cops or most cops are good people with just a few bad apples, then logically speaking, it should not be a big leap for you to also understand that most people fighting for equality in this country are good people. You're trying to have your cake and eat it too. Don't hate the cops because most of them are good. Man, I can't stand BLM because some of them are bad. No, it should be, let's listen to what people protesting have to say. It really sucks that some of them turn to violence. Let's not demonize all police because it really sucks that some of them are racist. See what I'm saying? Stop using that as an argument because you're arguing against yourself. All right, last but not least, the one you probably clicked on this video to hear discussion about. Number 5, Black lives don't matter because all lives matter. Black lives don't matter because blue lives matter. If you're watching this video, there's absolutely no way you haven't heard this argument. I'm going to break it down and discuss why it's a flawed point of view. One of the ways that people preach about all lives matter is to point to the fact that police violence and brutality affects all communities. All people, unarmed or not, have been killed by police in an unjustified way. That's true. One of the most popular things that people with this point of view bring up is Daniel Shaver. I'm about to show you a video of Daniel Shaver, who was an unarmed white man killed by a white cop in 2016. It's hard to watch, but it's important. So I'm going to play that clip now.
Hands up in the air! You do that again, we're shooting you. Do you understand? Please do not shoot me.
Begging for his life.
Then listen to my instructions. I'm trying to do what you don't talk, listen! Hands straight up in the air. Do not put your hands down for any reason. You think you're going to fall, you better fall on your face. Your hands go back in the small of your back or down. We are going to shoot you. Do you understand me? Yes, sir.
An officer then orders Shaver to crawl toward him. Shaver complies, but then moves his right hand behind him despite the warning.
I hate what happened to that man. I hate it, like in my bones. And I also hate that people use that as an excuse to take down BLM. See? Did you see that? Look at Daniel Shaver. He was killed in cold blood by a white cop, and he's white. You guys didn't have anything to say about that. Where was BLM when that happened? BLM only cares about black lives being killed by police. They don't care about anyone else. BLM is racist. BLM doesn't give a shit about anybody. If you're killed by police, your life doesn't matter unless you're black. That's what's wrong with BLM. That's what people use Daniel Shaver to say. Here's the problem with that argument.
Are gathering to protest the death of Daniel Shaver, who, as we know, was killed by former Mesa police officer Philip Brailsford. Brailsford was acquitted of murder a few weeks ago and was fired by the Mesa Police Department after the deadly shooting occurred. Tonight, organizers, including Black Lives Matter, with the blessings of Shaver's widow, are holding a vigil.
BLM were some of the very first people to speak up on behalf of Daniel Shaver, period. And he's not the only one. Just because you missed it doesn't mean it didn't happen. Just because you're not paying attention when Black Lives Matter speak up about something that you actually get on board with doesn't mean you understand where they're coming from. So stop using police brutality, specifically white-on-white police brutality, as an excuse to say that Black Lives Matter doesn't care about anyone else. They do. And this is when we need to start getting into the numbers. People often will scream all lives matter and then hit you with some raw numbers about how many white people were killed by police versus how many black people were killed by police. Here's a great example of that.
Enter the Black Lives Matter crew, which roams around the country promoting a false narrative that American police officers are actively hunting down and killing blacks. Here's the truth. Police shot whites at a rate of 50% in 2015. Police shot blacks at a rate of 26%.
Bill O'Reilly's not wrong there. More white people are killed by police than black people every single year. 2019 reflects the same statistics. But stats need context. More white people are killed than black people by police because they should be. And no, I'm not saying those people deserve to die. Of course not. I'm saying there are 4.5 times more white people in this country than black people. So if things were fair and equal, then police violence and brutality should affect the white community 4.5 times more. Does that make sense? When you add up the raw numbers, there should be 4.5 times more police deaths in the white community than in the black community, but there's not. Year to year, there's anywhere between 2.5 times to 2 times more deaths by white people. That means white deaths are underrepresented and black deaths are overrepresented. That's the entire point of Black Lives Matter. That's what we're talking about. Here's some more numbers for you. Black people are about 13% of the population in the United States, yet they make up 40% of the prison population. It goes further than just the people that are killed by police. It's the people that are arrested by police. It's the people that are tried in the criminal justice system. It's biased against black people. The numbers show this. This is not a debate. This is a fact. Black people are 13% of the population, but represent 40% of the country's prison population. And no, before your mind goes there, 40% of the crimes are not committed by black people, period. We are overrepresented in the prison system, which means our interactions with police are overrepresented, which means the rate at which we are killed by police are overrepresented because the system shows clear evidence of racial bias against black folks. Here's some more numbers for you. In the last 5 years, so that's January 2015 to May 2020, so last month, in the last 5 years, 2,385 white people were shot and killed by police. 1,252 black people were shot and killed by police. 877 Latino, Latinx, Hispanic people were shot and killed by police. These are the same stats that I spoke to earlier. These are the numbers for the last 5 years. Over the last 5 years, there's been about twice as many white people killed as black people. But if this were a free, fair, equitable society, if there were no variables other than racism involved, then white people will be killed at a rate 4.5 times as much. There would be 4.5 times as many white deaths than black deaths, but there's only 2 times as many black deaths. When you do the math, what that means is that as a black person in America, you are 2.5 times more likely to be shot and killed by police than your white counterparts. I'll say that again. This is not a debate. It is a fact based on raw data. Yes, technically more white people were killed, but more white people should be killed. There's way more of you. More context, 198 million white people in this country, roughly, versus 42 million black people in this country. But white people only die at the hands of police about twice as much based on the raw numbers. Take a look at this chart. Per 1 million black people, 30 of them are killed by police, as opposed to only 22 Hispanic, and out of every million white people, only 12 are killed by police. This is what we're talking about. This is the clear, irrefutable evidence of racial bias when it comes to police violence and brutality. This is not up for debate. If you are black, you are more likely to be shot and killed by police than anyone else. Period. Now, people like to counter this point by bringing up the black murder rate. And in certain areas, it is very high. Even nationwide, it's higher in the black community than it is in any other community. But here's the thing. Not all encounters with police are between police and criminals. Not all encounters with police are between police and violent criminals even. Why don't we look at the unarmed numbers from 2019? In 2019, 19 unarmed white folks were shot and killed by police. 9 unarmed black folks were shot and killed by police. It's still the same. It doesn't matter what numbers you look at, it's always the same. The total murder numbers, the unarmed murder numbers, it's always the same. So where's your debate now about, well, it's because they're out there committing crimes? Even when you break it down to the unarmed victims, it's still the same. Only about twice as many white people were killed by police last year that were unarmed. But there's 4.5 times as many. It still makes black people 2.5 times more likely to be shot and killed by police. Period. I have not seen one argument that says otherwise. And this is the point at which I like to let conservative commentators speak for themselves.
Now, I'm not going to pretend for a millisecond to know what it's like to be a black person in America. I don't. But the only thing I do know is that we all need to do better. We need to love more. We need to respect more. Do better.
I'm glad that Laura took the time to say that. I really am. Because when you're presented with the raw data, like I've just showed you, how do you not feel that? How do you not feel that? How do you not see and understand that black people are more at risk than anyone else? It's not that your community's not at risk if you're not black. Nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying that if you're white, you can't be killed by police. That police brutality doesn't affect everyone. Nobody's saying that. We're saying it affects us more, and the numbers back that up. So when you are confronted with this evidence, stop getting defensive, stop shutting down, and just listen. Listen to what people have to say. But instead, a lot of you are inclined to say this.
All lives matter equally. All of us were created by God. In the end, all of us will die. Nothing can change that. Not wealth, not fame, not race. Every life is precisely as valuable as every other life.
And that's the whole problem. It's so easy to say all lives matter. It's even easier to look at the statistics that show that all lives don't matter to the degree that they should. It's so easy to say, I don't see race. All lives matter to me. Cool. I'm glad. So then why aren't you outraged when one of these lives that matters to you so much is being hit harder by a problem than any other life is? Why don't you get mad about that? Instead, you say, well, look how high the black on black crime rate is. Look how high the black abortion rate is. Look at these 10% of black folks that agree with me. Or, of course, all lives matter. As I've demonstrated here today, none of those arguments carries water. They don't hold weight. They're not based on anything real. They're emotional, sure, but they don't make sense. This is my advice for the people that like to make any one of the previously mentioned 5 arguments. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Don't hide behind black on black crime, black abortions, black conservatives, rioters and looters, or all lives matter. Say what you actually mean, which is you don't think racism is a problem, and anybody complaining about it is just complaining. Until you do that, we can't even start the conversation. Be honest with yourself. You don't think racism is prevalent in the United States of America. Be honest about that. Once you do that, we can actually talk.